Gotcha. Good Tuesday, everybody. Welcome to BTL Bass Talk Live, where we're going to talk bass fishing and anything else that we want to talk about. Matthew, I got news for you, dude, and I talk about this a lot. If you're planning on going fishing here in Oklahoma this weekend, you might want to think about doing something else. A high on Sunday of 20.
It'll be interesting to see the first Triton Nichols of the season on Grand Lake. Typically draws anywhere from
canceled. It'll get canceled.
240 to 300 boats.
Yeah.
It has not been canceled yet, has it?
Not yet.
I've seen a number on the message boards, but just a brutal streak of really nice during the week, and then when it comes to game time, Mother Nature says not going to happen.
Not good. Not a good weekend to be on the water here in Oklahoma.
Does it seem like this winter, early spring has lasted abnormally long compared to past years?
No, it's still winter. That's what you forget.
I know, but we are in Oklahoma. You look at what has gone across in the South and everything. It just seems like it's just been one cold front after the other, and
all the events being canceled. We've discussed how many events.
There's been 4 major tournaments at either the tour, the coaster, the open level, where a day has been canceled or a day has been postponed. I think 2 coasters and open in the FLW tour event. It's just been unbelievable.
Yeah. So this weekend, and really across the South, it's going to be brutally cold. So I know these people and the fans that listen to us up north, they're just like laughing at us. But for Oklahoma, part of the reason why they schedule so many of the team events and individual events in the month of March, beginning sometimes late February, but most of the time the first week of March is when things get kicked off, because they're trying to get everything in as quickly as they can, because we really don't fish during the summer here. So, hence, this weekend, a high of 20 with winds out of the north, 20 to 30. I can't see how they're going to have it. Anyway, good show today. We're going to have Stephen Browning on, and very, very excited to get him on and talk about so many things. He's off to a really good start on the BBT.
And, made the first cup.
Yeah. Finished in 18th in the point standings, and the move to Major League Fishing. Matthew, he had a lot of connections and a lot of friends over on the bass side, because he lived right there in Arkansas and had done so many things and had been in this game for, 30 years almost?
Actually, fish bass for 24 years, Mark.
Yeah.
24 years, 3 open wins. Started fishing in 1995, I believe. Interesting thing, I want to ask him about it, if he followed Rick Clunn. You know, he lists Rick Clunn as his angling hero, kind of got into the game when Rick Clunn won. Was it there on Pine Bluff in 84?
Yeah.
My birth year.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was what kind of got Stephen Browning wanting to get into this game. So I'd be interested. I want to ask him if he was able to keep tabs on Rick when he almost hit the century mark in Florida, and if he reached out to him or talked to him about it. So that had to be kind of cool.
All right, real quick, I have a couple of things from viewers, but before I get to that, this whole red lips thing
you're
blowing up.
Annihilated.
Listen, I'm going to say this right now. All right, when you came up with this, if you would have said bass that have red mouths, their mouth, inside their mouth, I would be like, yeah, okay. But the way that you presented it to me, it made it sound like that you've got this bass that is just all lipsticked up.
I think if you go back and listen to the replay, you will find that I very clearly stated that
I didn't hear it
in the crushers. Here's another one. Chaz Miller just sent there.
All
Look how ruby
That's
red
inside the mouth.
Yeah, that's his lips on the inside.
That is not. That is his mouth. That is not.
Okay.
Anyway. So
tomatoes.
I appreciate all the people that are just giving me all kinds of grief. I have seen bass with red mouths.
Bothered you enough to get on and rebut the comments on our YouTube channel, Bass Talk Live.
I responded.
We do get a
I'm
lot
an
of good
idiot.
comments on that. I do appreciate. We do read all of the YouTube comments. If
Yeah.
you're not a subscriber, you have to log into YouTube, and then you can like and subscribe to the Bass Talk Live channel, and then that gets all of the replays that are posted immediately after the show, so you can go back and watch us if listening isn't enough to.
All right, a couple of things real quick from viewers. The first thing, and then we'll get into something that Matthew wants to talk about. Bruce, who lives in Nashville, sent us a message and said, hey guys, just a heads up for all the folks out your way traveling Interstate 40 to Knoxville to the Classic. It says Nashville is scheduled to have a major construction process on the 440 bypass that goes around town. Right now, there are scheduled 2 to 4 hour delays are expected for motorists.
In 2 weeks?
Yeah.
In
it would be best just to
Knoxville
take...
or in Nashville?
In Nashville. Well, you have to
go through Nashville to get to Knoxville. It's like 3 hours past.
Hang on. He said it would be best to take I-840 just west of Nashville to bring you out on the east side of Nashville onto I-40 West. A clear shot to Knoxville. So he's helping us out there for anybody west of Nashville traveling to Knoxville to not take I-40, to take 880 or 840.
Stepping out of your comfort zone as the weatherman and now moving into the traffic
They're
report.
helping us out here. All right. And then another gentleman who, a longtime listener and viewer of the show, says, hey, Mark, with the Classic just weeks away, why isn't Bass hyping up the Classic like they normally do? They don't really start the machine until kind of the week before. I mean, they throw some stuff out there, but...
Yeah, I think it's kind of right on par. I'll tell you what, with all of the Elite Series anglers that they've had in the studio, with some of the things that I've heard that they've done, I think, and I wouldn't even call it a hype machine, I would say that when they kick it into gear, it's going to be quite impressive this year.
No, I agree. But let me ask you this. Just like the Super Bowl, I mean, I love the Super Bowl. I love the Stanley Cup. Mm-hmm. All the hype and all the buildup to both of those events, do you get sick of the hype? Do you get to a point where it's just like, hey, guys, come on, man, just start making casts. Just start playing the game.
For the Classic, no. I mean, we're part of that, Mark, with what we do with BTL.
No, I'm asking
we have the interviews leading
Hang on, I'm not
it.
asking you about the Classic. I'm asking you about the two other events, the Super Bowl and the Stanley Cup.
Oh, well, the Super Bowl, yeah, but not the Stanley Cup because you've got the playoffs leading up to it. So there's really, I love the quest for the cup ads and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I don't have any problem with that. The Super Bowl,
pregame
yeah,
show,
but I'm
the
not a
pre-game
huge
show,
NFL
the
guy.
pre-game show.
Yeah, that.
So
But there's actually enough material with this Classic for a pre-game show, and you could never cover all the different storylines that are going to unfold over the next 3 weeks in Tennessee.
Well, I know the FLW event is taking place next week, correct?
On Chickamauga.
Right. So next week we're going to
No, not on Chickamauga, on Seminole.
Right. We're gonna try and focus our guests next week on the upcoming Classic, and then we're off to Knoxville. So that's kind of my thoughts on that. All right, man, you had something you wanted to talk about real quick, and then we'll take a break and bring Steven back in.
Yeah, I don't really know where to go with this, Mark, but I figure we have literally compared probably a dozen sports to bass fishing. And I don't know if this is really a comparison or more of a mental thing. Mm-hmm. But over the weekend, last weekend, I finally got to see the documentary Free Solo, which is about Alex Honnold. He's a climber who, it's a niche community that's kind of like the tournament bass fishing. Like if you're not into climbing, you don't know anything about climbing.
Right.
Just like if you're not into bass fishing, you don't know anything about bass fishing, which supposedly is going to change. But so this Free Solo is like they documented this guy for 2 years. He's like this freak athlete. He kind of lived out of his van for 9 years, dropped out of I think UC Berkeley. He's just obsessed with climbing, and he free solo, so he climbs with no ropes. And insane, 1,000-foot the main goal is this deal in Yosemite. You ever been to Yosemite in California?
Yeah.
It's amazing. I remember I went there when I was a little kid with my parents. And so he free solos El Capitan, which is like a 3,000-foot thing that people can't even hardly climb with ropes. So he climbs it with no ropes in 4 hours, and they document the whole thing and everything. But the basis of the whole movie then, and it kind of focuses on his relationship, and it focuses on his preparation, and it shows him up there, literally with like a little wire brush scrubbing stuff to try to get handholds, and he's got the entire route memorized, and it led me to think about this self-confidence that guy has when he makes the decision. He talks about it throughout the whole thing, being committed, and how there's no adrenaline rush, how it's actually smooth. He's got the whole thing mapped out. There's a 5-minute segment where he's like, left hand hold here, roll the finger over, step the thumb, and he's got the whole thing mapped out. And it kind of led me, and we've done so many of these interviews with these guys on here, and Boyd Duckett talked about it. It was one of our most viewed BTLs ever when he talked about the preparation going into the tournament. And you hear these guys, the tournament's won on the water, but it's really won off the water with the preparation. Because when we interview the winners, it's all about calm, cool, collected. Things don't go as planned. You make the right decisions. You have 100% confidence in it. And when these guys are climbing, it's not like a 10-second thing. It's not like a hockey play where you get a breakaway and it's just reflexes. You have time to think, just like you do in this game. When you're fishing, you have time to think. And that confidence to make the right decision comes on the preparation that you do prior to the game starting, prior to starting to climb, prior to starting to fish. And I just was thinking about how many guys, weekend guys, because I've been there. I know you've been there with the tournaments that you fish. It's basically, I feel like 95% of tournament guys, with everything that's going on, completely overlook the preparation that it takes to be fully prepared for that tournament. Now, I'm not talking about baits lose. I'm talking about really understanding what's going on, fully committing to it. And if that's not your deal, if you just want to go out and enjoy it, but there's a lot of guys who feel like, they're fishing big tournaments, not fully committed to it, and then they get out there and they panic. But it was cool to kind of relate what this guy does as far as his preparation to be. Could you imagine being that prepared going onto the water?
No.
To where you see I'm going with that?
No, I get it. I saw the scaled down version on E60. They did about
60 minutes.
No, it was on E60.
Oh, they did an E60?
Yeah, okay. They did an E60 on ESPN on the guy.
Recently?
Yeah.
Oh,
it was this weekend.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I saw it, and I thought, this guy's just a freak. He is. He's freak from a mental capacity standpoint. He's a freak from a physicality standpoint. And there are just these special people that come along once in a lifetime that have the characteristics to do what he does. And they showed obviously parts of the documentary and talked about how much preparation he put into this one thing that he wanted to conquer. Now, let's go with, there's 75 guys on the Elite Series, right? If you had, once again, and I'm going to find it somewhere, even though I know it doesn't exist, the truth serum. If you were to put a truth serum in all 75 guys and ask them one question, how prepared are you going into this event? What would the responses that you get back from those guys that said, I am as prepared as I can possibly be?
That's a great question. And, I've roomed with these guys over the past 10 years at every single event.
Yeah.
I've talked to them. I mean, I would think that maybe 10 guys have done absolutely
10 out of 75
that they can, because you have to think, especially with this new group coming on, there are so many new outside factors, and there's a lot of distractions now between the medias and the rules and everything that's going on.
I think it would be a little bit higher than that. And here's why. It's because the field is vastly new. You have a lot of guys that are trying to really solidify what they're doing on the Elite Series. Now, 80 guys over on the BPT, what do you think the number would be over on the PPT? You're thinking the same?
No.
Would it be higher?
It'll be interesting
because of the experience.
We'll ask Stephen Browning this because we've got a clip that we're going to run before we get him on, and he talks about how he was kind of going through the motions before.
Well, that's the point that I was going to make. And having been around these guys for so long, yes, there are guys out there that do everything they can do to get ready for an event, but there's also what I call passive aggressiveness. In other words, they're very passive. They're in their little think tank. Mm-hmm. They're used to doing the same thing all the time, and they get passive. They get kind of not overconfident, but they just get dialed in on doing the same thing, and then that passiveness begins to decrease on the amount of intensity that they put into their preparation.
And outside of the preparation, what struck me was, and because I feel this a lot on the water, you have that moment where you go, this is not going as planned. Mm-hmm. And then you spin out. It happened to me on Amistad.
Yeah.
You start running, you know it's not going well. When you're rock climbing like that, you don't have that option. So you have to prepare to actually deal with that.
Yeah, you know
because you die without it. Now you don't in fishing, but what I'm saying is what's amazing.
You don't win.
This is what was amazing to me, to be prepared enough not to get rattled throughout the course of the entire day.
Yeah.
That was what stuck out to me. Now, as far as being prepared, you can be prepared in different ways. It doesn't have to mean that you've done every map study and practice for a month and all that. But I feel like you're prepared when, regardless of what happens over the course, you have put yourself in a position to handle it calmly, coolly, and confidently with enough trust in yourself to where the doubt doesn't creep into your mind.
That's a good point.
That's what I was trying to say about this whole thing.
You know, in that documentary, one of the things that really stuck out in the short version of it that they did on E60 was his main concern was not about him. His main concern was about his film crew.
Watching him die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's just like laid back, kind of chilling, and he was really, really concerned about the film crew. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I think you have a valid comparison there. I really do.
It's more about the mentality, the preparation, and
the dude's
and
a
the
freak,
process.
Though. He's an absolute
than
freak.
Actually comparing those two because they're so different.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
People think I'm probably off my rocker on that.
No, I think for the first time in the history of this show, we compared bass fishing to rock climbing.
But I mean, I'm just thinking, like, as confident, as calm as he is 1,000 feet off the ground, could you imagine if you could spend an entire day on the water in a tournament that confident and that calm with every single decision that you're making 100% at peace with it?
It's a great point. I like the preparation too. Mm-hmm. Dude, he spent so much time in getting ready for that climb. And I don't know, man. I think a lot of guys, when they start to go through that tough period or have a tough season, that's one of the things you might look back and look at their preparation and see if their preparation, not only physically, but mentally, has changed. You know, and then you start to see some down
and can
years
you
with
teach
that.
yourself that, or is it just there's some people that are mentally capable of putting themselves in that space? It's like what Rick Clunn searches for all the time. You talk about Van Dam saying it's all about the attitude.
Think so. All right, we're going to take a break. Come back with Stephen Browning here on a Tuesday. Everybody stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Sleek new design with easy control file. The clearest images underwater with uncompromising range. Live mapping from the touchscreen. View notifications, video, even Google Maps on screen. And for the first time ever, real-time view of fish movements with live sight sonar. HDS Live. New from Lowrance.
It's about the hours spent getting everything just right. It's the attention to detail. Good just isn't good enough. It's the years spent on the water day after day. When you tie on a bait by Strike King, you're standing on the shoulders of legends.
Pros depend on hydraulic jack plates to get the best out of their boats. Do what they do. Demand Atlas performance. Atlas gets you from the bottom to the top in less than 8 seconds, even with the big 4 strokes. And when you gotta turn right around and get that heavy load back up in rough water, Atlas's innovative design and American-made components will get you there with confidence.
I'm at Depot. Just look for yourself. There's an Atlas jack plate on just about every professional's boat.
The Atlas hydraulic jack plate. You can depend on it.
Hey guys, Aaron Martins here. I'm going to be telling you about a new product by Sunline. It's Siglon PE x8. I've been using it almost extensively all year for my frogging, flipping, drop shotting, shaky heading, worming, jerk baiting. It's by far my favorite Sunline braid. I honestly, I don't say this unless I think it's true, but honestly it's the best braid in the market of any of the braids. Definitely check it out. It's a price point line, $14.95 for 165 yards, and that could last you a whole year, just one spool with using leader material. It's Siglon PE x8. It's my favorite braid, and I think if you use it, it'll be your favorite braid too. AFCO has a new foul weather rain suit called the Hydronaut. A lot of the features that I really like about it first is the speed vent hood. If it's raining out, you know how a person gets wet is when you run down the lake and the hood comes down. With the speed vent hood, it's going to stay up. It has a camera mount in the pocket on the chest. The Hydronaut has a 2-layer, 100% waterproof nylon shell. If you're interested in a rain suit that has a lot of cool features that's going to keep you dry, you need to check out the Hydronaut from AFCO.
All right, we are back on a Tuesday. Show number 24 of the year, Matthew.
It's a strong start.
And, we were talking before the show about what I've got going on from a state basketball tournament. And Matt asked me, he said, man, do your kids do everything that you want them to do 100% of the time? And my response was, yeah, most of the time. I'd say 95% of the time. They're really good about sticking to the plan and doing the things that we spend a lot of time, watching film and really breaking down what the other team does. And it ties back to what you just said, Matthew, about preparation.
Relatable to life.
Yeah. You do what is necessary to get ready for the next steps in whatever you're doing. But at the same time, you and I both know, and here recently, well, this year sometime, there have been individuals that have just shown up and had success. Mm-hmm. Sometimes that happens. Yep. Sometimes it's just a freak situation and things happen. It's kind of like winning games that you're not supposed to win, or catching fish that you had no idea that you were going to catch. But
like I said,
you adjust, you do things right.
My whole thing to that is the adjusting all that with 100% confidence in your next move. That was the whole premise of the last kind of
it was good.
Weird hippie segment that I went off on.
That's all right, man. I could see you living in a van down by a cliff and
I would
trying
have
to climb it.
No problem doing that. One of the next guys who made the right call
Yes, he
who
did.
made the right adjustment with literally a second left in the final round to make the top 10 the final round at Lake Conroe.
Yeah.
Was Stephen Browning. Now, even without that fish, I think he would have still made the first cut because of his performance in Florida and what he did in the first opening rounds
Right.
at Conroe. But
Right.
if you hadn't seen it, if you didn't watch on live, it was all over social media. He knew what he needed. He was outside of the top 10 cut, picks up a chatterbait, fires it next to a log as seconds were winding down, catches a 3-pounder, and gets into the top 10 cut.
Yeah.
A great, probably one of the top 2 iconic BPT moments to this date through first 2 events. The buzzer beater.
That
The
and Andy Montgomery
Yep,
is
that
the
and
other
Andy
one.
Montgomery. But the half-court buzzer beater to make it to the finals.
Yeah.
So
Dead on.
are we going to run the clip before
Yeah.
we bring him in? So
Yeah.
I was down there at Conroe covering it, and I just walked up to him right after, and he still didn't know where he was. He was still so jacked up over it. But this is kind of what he had to say following that fish catch as he was waiting to go through the post-game show with Lurch.
All right, here we go.
You know, the deal was at Toho, elimination round, man. I get there, and I'm right there, and you feel it, and you know what you have to do, and just ran out of time, didn't make it happen. And then, you know, to bounce right back and be almost in that same situation again here on Conroe, and it be the knockout round, and you know, a chance to go to Championship Sunday, and to be in that same position. You know, I went down fighting at Toho, and I said, but dang if I'm not going to go down fighting here too. So, you know, I knew what I was looking for. I just couldn't find it. I know it may not make sense, but it just, I just fished a lot of dead water today, and right there at the end of the day, I saw the log that I felt like that fish was going to be on, and it just, I just knew I couldn't jack it up.
Does it rank up there as far as the adrenaline rush moments?
Oh, I don't know what time it is. It's an hour and a half after all that. I'm still jacked up, and I mean it's just an adrenaline rush like no other, because you're always in the know. You're not thinking the other guys. You know what the other guys are doing. You're not thinking, you know what they're doing, and by knowing, it adds pressure. But then again, it relieves a little pressure, if that makes any sense. I mean, it just, because you know what you have to do to get over the hump or to get to the next round.
All right, we welcome to the show Stephen Browning. That was pretty cool, man.
Well, thank you, man. Good to see y'all this morning.
Yeah. You know, we ran the clip of your excitement, and one of the things that stuck out to me is you said, what is it, an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours? I don't even know what time it is, and I'm still fired up. I'm still excited.
Yeah, Matt was there, man. I was still shaking, and it had been literally at least 2 hours after I had caught that fish, and it was, I don't know, it was just one of those moments in fishing that was very fortunate enough to have a camera guy in the boat with me and to have it recorded, and you know, that fish, without that camera guy there, without that score tracker knowing what it was, that, you know, that fish would have just been another fish, a last minute catch that you hear about in the weigh-in lines. But with that camera guy there recording it, it was one of those incredible moments that I'll never forget.
It's kind of weird. It almost seems like you knew you were going to get bit off that stump, which is part of the reaction that made it so cool.
Yeah, you know, I had gone a long time kind of fishing a lot of used water that I'd already fished. There wasn't a lot of fish in the area, but they were the right quality. And, you know, I knew right there at the end of the day, I had maybe 7 or 8 minutes left, and I was like, you can either sink right here, or by gosh, you can load up and make you a little move. And I've seen these two logs in practice, and the first one I just boogered up just because I think I was just, I don't know, it was one of those deals you get caught up in the moment and you don't take your time. And then the last one I was like, look, dude, this is it. This is your last shot right here, either to move into the championship round or pack your stuff and go to the house. And The first cast with that jackhammer, it was not the best, and I knew it. And then the second one, when the bait hit the water, I told my boat official and the camera guys, I said, that's money right there. And sure enough, I mean, it was just one of those, point at the wall and knock one over.
All right, Stephen, to start things off, we're going to get into the fishing stuff here in a moment. But, man, the history that you have or had with Bass, a tremendous career with that organization, and now you're with Major League Fishing, and obviously you're doing quite well. But, how did this all come about for you, and was it a tough decision for you with so much history with that organization?
Guys, it was, Mark, that probably one of the toughest decisions, and it wasn't my decision, it was my family's decision, and that's what made it even tougher because of our relationships more with the people at JM Associates than Bass. And it was more of a in the week ahead of the decision-making process, I almost had to take JM out of the equation and look at it from me, the stage that I was at in my career, the longevity that I'd had, where was it leading to in the next 10, 15 years? Because I feel like I honestly have about, a good 10 to 15 years. Now with Major League Fishing having a few days off, it may lead into 20 more years. I don't know. But anyway, the deal was, what had Bass done for not Stephen Browning, but what had it done for the anglers over the course of the last 3 to 4 years? And I just felt like, honestly, that the anglers weren't getting treated the way we should. I mean, when you have that Elite Series angler tag on your back, I just didn't feel like we were being treated as Elite Series anglers. There was a lot going on with Bass through their high school, through their college, through the Opens, and it was almost, in my opinion, was that the Elite Series guys were being left out of some things that I thought was very, very important, and pretty basically payout. I mean, I just saw it going, just kind of maintaining, but then you have live and all these viewers and all, the revenue was coming in. Why weren't we seeing any? And that I don't know, it just had a bad feeling in my stomach.
Do you think kind of that realization and kind of fishing through it affected your performance as the years went on the Elite Series? Because I went back and looked, and from 2006 to 2011, you had 8 top 10s on the Elite Series, but then from 2012 through 2018, you had 0 top 10s on the Elite Series. Now, granted, you made a classic in between there. You had 3 Bassmaster Open wins, obviously one in 2018, 2014, and 13. But when it came to the Elite Series side, the performance wasn't there, where obviously it had been in the past and was still there in the Opens.
Well, guys, and I'm totally honest with you. When I left the house to go fish an Open, it was like I was getting back with the Bass Club, those guys that I had fished with for since the beginning of my career. And the atmosphere around the Opens was so much more positive than it was around the Elite Series. You get in an Elite Series event, and I mean the first 10 people you talk to, 8 of them were as negative Nelly as they could be. And it's like, it was almost like they were sucking you into their web. And, my attitude wasn't the greatest once I backed my boat in the water. There were certain events that I felt like I would do well in, but there were certain events that I was, pretty much just going through the motions of being a, tournament angler. And, that's the reason that I feel like I've had so much success with the Opens is just, it's just guys that want to be better and guys that sent a lot of positive energy. And, that was a better, atmosphere for me, going into a competition event.
Stephen, I know you said it was a family decision, but was there one thing or one situation that really solidified your decision?
You know, guys, it was Mark. I talked to several guys at JM the weeks leading into it, and they were like, yeah, you're one of us. You don't, we really would like for you to stay, but I never had that phone call from a Bruce Aiken, from a Chase Anderson that said, hey, Stephen, we really want you to hang out with us, man. We're going to make this thing work. Believe us. I got a phone call from Boyd Duckett on a Thursday morning, and guys, this is when it was heated. I mean, this was when it was all going down, and Boyd Duckett spent 45 minutes to an hour talking to me and telling me his vision and explaining why he really felt like Stephen Browning needed to be a part of Major League Fishing. And after that conversation, I was just like, wow, he didn't have to do that. He could have extended an invitation to me and said, hey, guy, come on and get over here and get with this thing. We think it's going to work. He literally broke it down piece by piece. And, when I got off the phone with him, I told my wife and son, I said, this thing's going to work. I said, there is no doubt. There is so much energy and so much force behind this project that I know it's going to work. And, I just felt like that's where I needed to be, and in that atmosphere to have success.
All right, let's talk a little fishing, because there's a number of people on the instant feedback want to know and it kind of ties into the conversation that Matt and I had, the preparation difference. Is there a difference between a PBT event or BBT event and a Elite Series event? Are you preparing in a different way?
Actually, yes and no, because all you can do is catch what your practice shows you. That's the game plan that you come up with, is what your day and a half of practice shows you out there on the water. And I'm a shallow water guy, so I immediately run. Everything's shallow that I feel like it's going to be there, so I prepare to fish shallow. The big thing with the Elite Series was that a lot of guys they go out there and they you hear that swing for the fences, whatever. They concentrate on 5 bites. I love fishing. I love catching. I don't want to go out there and fish for 5 fish all day. I want to go out there and catch 30 and hope that I get the 5 right ones come along. And that's another reason that I think this Major League Fishing format really fits my style of fishing.
Matt, this is a good segue into your question that you were wanting to ask him.
Yeah, so we had Edwin on. He skirted around the issue. We saw what he did at Conroe with the bladed jig. There's not really any incentive for him to pump the bladed jig, though. We've seen what you did with the jackhammer there, and I'm sitting back and I'm thinking, I'm looking at Florida, and I'm looking at Conroe, and I'm looking at the stops ahead, and I'm looking back at the history of the bladed jig, and I'm saying this is the perfect Major League Fishing format bait. You can cover water with it. You can skip it. You can fish it around hardcover. You can fish it around docks. You can fish it around grass. It gets the big bite. It also catches numbers, and it shows you how many fish are there, and you can catch a bunch of 1-pounders on it. Do you agree that the bladed jig is going to become what the 7-iron of Major League Fishing, that everybody's going to have in their bag, and you're going to see it play from the first to the last cast as long as this whole shindig exists?
It absolutely, because it was very funny. Garrett Dixon, who does a lot of photography work for him, I showed him, my bladed jigs, and he was like, oh, you could tell that he had taken a lot of pictures of bladed jigs that morning in the top 10. And it's, it is the perfect bait to cover water, to fish all kinds of water, that shallow. It's a perfect get bit type of bait. And, you can look at my success with it over the years, and I honestly feel like I'm one of the best bladed jig fishermen out there. I mean, I have that much confidence in that bait when I have it in my hands, and I just, it is definitely my go-to bait in Major League Fishing.
Do you have the one that you're using, don't you, right there?
Yes, I do. That's and it's a jackhammer. And guys ask me, they're like, that's just a white jackhammer. And the deal is, I use the diesel minnows and the razor shads by Z-Man. And guys, I'm going to tell, and this was, I don't know, you probably can't see it, but I dipped it in chartreuse. If you'll put that diesel minnow and that razor shad in the freezer for just a little bit, it's a little bit of JJ Magic in the freezer just for a little bit, get them cold, dip them, they'll take. But if you dip it while it's hot, it'll melt.
Wait, whoa.
Yeah.
So let me say this. So obviously you use the Elastec thing, like you try to use a spike it marker on a Ned, on a TR turd, and it's just like doesn't work. So wait, you're saying put the Elastec in the freezer.
That's right.
For how long?
30 minutes.
30 minutes.
Just get it real good and cold.
Okay.
Where it's almost, it won't get stiff on you, but you can tell it loses its flexibility. And you just have to get them both real cold. The JJ's Magic and the Elastec products both cold. Dip them in there, and they'll take just a hint of tint. And that's just something that I've done over the last couple of weeks in the Major League Fishing, and actually down at Toledo Bend last week, and it just makes a difference.
Wait, okay, follow-up question. How the hell did you figure that out?
Well, I'll be honest with you. It was like when you open a bottle of JJ's Magic and it starts bubbling and it gets hot, and once it gets hot and you dip really anything in it, it melts it. So I was thinking one day, actually my son came up with it. We were at Toledo Bend in January, and he was like, they didn't know that it wouldn't take, so they opened it up and they dipped it in, and I'm like, dang, that just tinted the tail. And so I got to thinking, I was like, it's got to do something with heat. And sure enough, as the year went around, that's just what I do now. So it's just trial and error.
Wow. So bladed jig box, basic stuff, black and blues, green pumpkins and whites, or I don't ever think I've ever seen Brett Hite throw a white on white. That's like a crime for him. He throws green pumpkin and that's it.
Yeah, it is. It's white on white and chartreuse on white, green pumpkin with the green pumpkin trailer, Bee Hite Delight with a green pumpkin trailer, and black and blue with a black and blue lemon on the back end of it. And that's it. I try to keep it as simple as I possibly can.
All right, you mentioned your son earlier. What is his plans as far as fishing and tournaments?
Well, he fished his first pro event last week at Toledo Bend on the pro side. I opened my mouth, stuck my foot in it last year and said, look, dude, if you qualify to fish on the pro side in the opens, then by gosh, I'm right here behind you. And my wife and I are 100% behind him, and he wants to, become a professional angler. And we're going to do everything we can. And we're going to support him if he fishes bass, FLW, Major League Fishing. It doesn't matter to us. But if that's what he wants to do, that's the direction we're going to push him in. Not too many 17-year-olds know what they want to do for a living.
You mentioned the other organizations and following it. I know that I've read some stuff where Rick Clunn was your hero, that Pine Bluff in 1984 when he won that classic. Your thoughts on what he was able to do on the St. Johns River, almost break the Century Club, had to be kind of cool. And did you talk to him at all about that afterwards?
Matt, I have not talked to Rick. I'm sure hopefully I'll be able to catch up with him at the Classic. He has always been one of my longtime heroes, simply because at that 84 Classic in Pine Bluff, what he did there was just amazing. It just took all of us locals that lived around Pine Bluff. I was actually growing up in Pine Bluff, and I was actually a volunteer for that particular Classic. And to watch him take apart that harbor and just dominate like he did was amazing. And I started following his career and just he was the mental guy that that nobody could touch. I mean, he by God, you talking about preparation. There's no doubt Rick's one of those guys that is totally prepared, even to today. And I just feel like that you know, he will definitely get a congratulations handshake from me at the Classic when I see him.
That's cool. All right, Steven, I want to ask you something, having been in this game for so long, and Matt and I compare professional fishing to a lot of other sports, but from a technology standpoint, it seems like the professional game in fishing has gotten to the point now where guys definitely have an advantage over other anglers simply because either the sponsor that they have or the bank account that they have. Do you think that we're getting to a point that a true measurement of the professional game would create the situation kind of like what Major League Fishing does, is everybody is going to have limitations on their equipment? Have we gotten to that point yet from a BPT standpoint, from an Elite Series standpoint, from an FLW standpoint, to where there should be equality rather than a sponsorship or a bank account edge?
You know, I don't think so, Mark. And simply the reason behind it is there's too much money, sponsored dollars going towards bass, going towards FLW, going towards Major League Fishing, that I honestly think if you start saying, hey, we're not going to let guys use this technology, we're not going to let them use this trolling motor, these electronics, these particular things on this electronics that will give them an advantage. You know, I don't think you're going to see that, but that's what I love about the cup events in Major League Fishing. Everybody's put on the body of water with the exact same equipment. You got to get out there, no practice. You get out there and you find them in a hurry, or you're going to be behind. And I think that's probably, you know, some of these other organizations may have some, you know, sponsorship boats that you remember that we used to run back during the Classics. I mean, I've fished several Classics where you show up in your truck and all your stuff. You know, they throw you in the exact same boat and everybody's, off and running. You know, I think that's kind of what stemmed the Major League Fishing Cup format.
Right.
Is that how it was when you won the All-American? Did everyone fish out of the same boat back in
we
96?
did. Yeah, absolutely we did. We everybody they were furnished Ranger boats and Evinrude outboards or Johnson outboards and a 1240A up there on the dash.
Well, the only reason I asked that question, Steven, is I think the cup events are magical because of that reason, because everybody's pretty much on a level playing field. Why do you think that the other events should not at least have limitations? And I get the whole sponsor thing, but when you look at individual sports, you know, there's limitations on rackets for professional tennis players. There's limitations on clubs for professional golfers. Sponsorship is huge in both of those events. There's limitations, obviously, in some of the team sports from an equipment standpoint. Why would it be any different from a cup event to your BPT events to really showcase what the skill level is that you guys possess?
Well, honestly, I think, in my opinion, it would put the younger anglers at such a disadvantage that I don't think you'll ever see it. And I don't mean any disrespect from those guys, but because it's out there, it's available to them, it's available to us. It's been around for 25 years. I just honestly think if you took away some of those gadgets from some of these guys, I'm gonna be honest with you guys, they would be lost and they wouldn't catch their rear end, and I can promise you that.
Screw catching them, I wouldn't even be able to get back to the boat ramp at the end of the day.
I mean, even to today, if something happens to my mapping on it's like, which way was the ramp? I'm not real sure where we are.
Yeah.
So
I remember I was out with Harold Allen one time, and I was using the GPS to get somewhere. We were on the boat, and he's like, "Where are you guys?" I followed the back. He goes, "What if that goes out?" He goes, "You don't got a paper map in the boat." I said, first of all, I wouldn't be able to find out where I was on the paper map. And I said, second of all, we got Wi-Fi service. I got it on my phone. He's like, what if the phone goes out? He's like, young man, you need to learn how to use a paper map.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of what, that was one of the things that I had so much success in early in my career, was taking a map and really dissecting it and being able to go offshore and not really offshore, but find those little subtleties out there that, I caught a lot of fish early in my career on a Carolina rig, and I've gotten away from it simply because those places are readily available for everybody. You just look at your map and you drive right to them. So those types of places just don't set up for me like they did when I first began.
Stephen, how important was the All-American win to your career?
No, the All-American win was huge. I'll be honest with you. I'd actually had a full season with BASS in the invitationals back in those days. I finished 10th in the points, and I was scratching my head on how to come up with $9,000 to pay the entry fees for the BP Top 100s for the 96, 97 season. And I'll be honest, I didn't, going into the All-American, I didn't really look at the payout that close until I got there. And, my deal was, 100,000 first place, but it was like $30,000 for fifth place. And I'm like, dude, all you have to do is finish in the top 5 on your home body of water. Surely you can do that. And, when I did that, it just gave me the financial backing that I needed at that point in time to pursue what I really had dreamed about doing since I was 17 years old. And that was like almost 12 years later.
Well, trivia. Do you know who finished second to you in that All-American?
I think it was Menendez, but I couldn't swear.
Mark Menendez.
Wow.
I thought so. Yeah, and the funny thing about that was that Menendez was actually fishing, on BASS at the time as well. So, we hashed it out over the years. He should have done this, he should have done that, and I'm like, well, I'm glad you didn't. But I finished. I won that one, and then the next year in '97, I qualified for my first classic, and I think that was really the All-American win got me to where I was, but that first classic really got me up and over that hump that you have to get over. These young kids trying to get out here, there's a hump that you just have to get over, and it's performance on the water. And that was what really propelled me to where I'm sitting today.
All right, I'm looking at the instant feedback. David in Wisconsin wants to know, can you talk about what your setup is? And I'm assuming he's talking about your boat setup this year.
Or the jackhammer setup.
Yeah. I'm not sure about that.
Just run us through your entire setup.
Right. The new Mercury 4-stroke Pro XS is what I powered with a Bob's jack plate on the back end of a 21-foot Triton. I went to the 20. I ran the 22 last year. This year, just simply because we're going to some smaller bodies of water. I think that 21, the Triton TRX 21, is really the boat to have, where you can kind of get a little bit shallower than the other guys and fish some of that skinny water. And I went a Minn Kota trolling motor, Lowrance Electronics, if that helps him out at all. But if he's talking about the jackhammer, I honestly have kind of gone away from all other chatterbaits except the jackhammer. I just have that much confidence in it. And I throw it on either a 7-foot medium heavy rod with a moderate action, something that you might throw a 2.5 or a 2.0 square bill around on, either 16 or 14 pound gamma fluorocarbon, and I vary my reels. Normally this time of year, pre-spawn, I always use a faster reel. The reason being like a 7.5 to 1. The reason being, a lot of these pre-spawn fish will hit that chatterbait, and they will run with it so fast that you cannot. It's virtually impossible to keep up with them. So I'll go to a little higher speed reel. Now, after the spawn's over with, I'll scale back and do like a 6:4 to 1 gear ratio on my reels, just simply because I don't feel like the fish are as energetic as they as they are coming into the spawn. And a lot of times people will see me throwing a longer rod. I use a 710 heavy moderate if I'm just trying to cover water, making long casts. That's actually what I was using at Conroe, and that just allows me to make a long cast. If that fish hits on the end of the cast, that longer rod actually allows me to set the hook and get a good penetration, and then be able to control them at a long distance. So I hope that answered his questions.
Hopefully it did. All right, Eric in Minnesota wants to know: were you planning on fishing the Smith Lake Open? And obviously now, if you were, you can't do that.
Right. I was. I had registered for all the opens, and unfortunately, the way the scheduling came out, that we won't be able to. I think there's either 4 or 5 of us that fish MLF and that fish Toledo Bend, that we won't be able to compete in that Smith Lake event. But I'm going to be there. My son's going to be there. I'm actually going to stay with Swindle that week, and we're going to turkey hunt and cook for the kids. His nephew Trey is also competing on the Open, so we're going to be the fathers of the group. We're going to let the young kids, the young guns, go out there and hopefully get after it. It's going to be extremely difficult for both of us, I know, because of the information and really how we're going to have to hold conversations with the kids, because it's going to be kind of sketchy. So we don't want to put ourselves in a situation.
Hey, I'm just curious. I talk about the weather on this show all the time because I think it has a huge impact on the events that are taking place, and especially this time of the year. What has Arkansas been like? If you guys got a lot of rain, is that rain kind of moving over? Because there's so much discussion about how much water is going through the classic waters right now.
Right.
What is Arkansas like?
It's been horrible. I mean, it's been like nice I think it's going to be like in the 60s the next few days. Tournament rolls around on Saturday. It's going to be in the mid 40s, with north wind, just similar to what you guys are experiencing. I mean, we've got Ouachita is high. Hamilton's not high, but it's muddy. DeGray's high. All the northern lakes are all high, muddy, which is, I don't mind that, but it's just it's been a very weird late winter for us, for sure.
All right, man. Anything else? You got anything in the works on anything that you'd like to tell the viewers about?
I don't know. I'm just very, very excited about that first Cup event. Matt had talked about that fish. I really and truly thought I needed that last second fish to be able to qualify for that Cup event. You watch it on TV, you want to be a player, and it's kind of like a kid watching professional baseball or professional basketball, football. You want to be a player in that particular game, and now to actually be able to be there and compete in that first Cup event. I mean, I'm super freaking stoked.
Awesome. Well, man, I can't thank you enough for taking time out. Wish you nothing but the best. And are you going to be at the Classic?
I will be at the Classic for sure. I mean, one thing I will say to all the listeners out there, especially the young kids that inspire to be a professional angler, those sponsors are without a doubt they're your lifeline in this sport. Matt gave you some statistics of mine, earlier, and you cannot survive this game without really good sponsors. And yes, sir, anytime they call, anytime they need me, that you just pack it up and you go. You don't care where it's at, what time of the year it is, you go and you do your job. And because those are the ones that have actually, gotten me over the humps and through the tough years and all, and could not appreciate them any more than what I do.
All right, man. Great stuff. Look forward to seeing you at the Classic. And, man, be careful. Stay dry. Stay warm. And we'll see you soon, man.
Thanks, man. I appreciate y'all.
All right. there you have it. Stephen Browning. Some really good info there, Matthew.
It's amazing. He's 18th place in the BPT standings, tied with one Mike Iaconelli. Boy, they've reached the same place with such different ways of getting there, Mark.
No, it's a valid point there, Matthew. Hey, did you know what yesterday was? It was the 70th birthday for an individual that we talk about every now and then on this show.
Fishing World?
No.
Oh. Tom Selleck?
No. No, the nature boy Ric Flair.
Oh,
turned
really?
70 yesterday.
70.
Yeah, it was interesting, the take that they had on the Monday Night Raw last night. Batista made a return and beat the crap out of Ric Flair at the end of the show.
Happy birthday to Rick.
Beating up a 70-year-old man. I'm not sure what the take is and what
Who
script
took a
they're
worse
going there.
beating, Ric Flair or you with the fish lips?
Probably me. Probably me.
I like that you got on there and responded to every single one.
What did you expect? I wasn't going to. I was going to admit I'm an idiot because I
I'm sitting there laughing.
seriously thought that you were talking
He's
about
out there going,
the
dude,
outside of the mouth.
How have you not ever heard that? You respond, dude, ... I know what you're talking about, ... Red Crushers, ... I thought you meant lips, ...
I'm an
Come on,
idiot.
man, ...
Yeah, I like using the ... Anyway,
I'm serious. Steven, now obviously sponsored by Z-Man. But Steven agreed with me on the chatterbait.
yeah, I think
that's a no-brainer.
I think you're dead on too about that.
I mean, not that it wasn't a massive player and isn't a massive player on the Elite Series and FLW Tour.
Yeah.
But, they say 2 days of practice. It's a day and a half.
Yeah.
And it's a big body of water. And you're still trying to figure out how you're trying to cover water. I've watched Brandon's and Jacob Wheeler's and Cannell's and all these guys' practices, and you're watching how much water they're trying to cover in this day and a half, and it goes like that. It's remarkably fast how quick a day and a half goes when you're used to 3.
Yeah.
And I think the chatterbait really helps you cover that water efficiently, and will in any water condition.
Yeah. On the instant feedback, Matt from, I think it's Massachusetts, wants to know, Mark, what kind of limitations are you for? It sounds like that you're for
We've
limitations.
had these shows before where you go into it.
I just think
Electronics, number of rods and reels, trolling motors. You want it to be as uniform as possible to highlight the decision making and the talent of the anglers instead of letting technology replace talent.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the coolest things was back in the day when the Classic, you had X number of boxes, you had X number of rods.
I remember if you broke a rod, I don't think you were even able to replace it. And you had a tackle box that had to weigh 10 pounds. One of the coolest things was I did it in the house with Shaw Grigsby a couple years ago when we were down in Florida. And he had this tackle box that was tucked away. And he's like, oh, that was my tackle box from the 87 Classic or whatever. And he opens it up and it's all the lures. So that's all he had.
Yeah.
He had his rods, his reels. He took his tackle box. He jumped in the boat and he was good to go.
The only thing I didn't like is I really believe that the guys should be able to use their own boats. I mean that's kind of a
sticky point.
They need to be able to use their own boats,
but the boats are all very similar, which they actually are. So one more thing before we go, I have not mentioned it on the show yet, but my latest AFCO Bass Boot Camp video of me continuing not to catch anything in this never-ending winter in Oklahoma is up over on the AFCO YouTube page. So I'm doing those every 2 weeks now.
All right.
This involves blue cat fishing, more flat tires, smallmouth bass, and I actually got on the water with Jason Christie in this one. So go over, like that, and subscribe to their channel too. So there'll be a lot more coming I'm about to go on the road in 2 weeks and be on the road for like 2 months.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. All right. Good stuff. Nate in Connecticut said, did you guys not talk about the fact that they scheduled over the Open? No, we haven't talked about that. Talking about Major League Fishing and the BPT.
There's a lot of Opens. There's a lot of Coastas.
It is what it is. I mean, when you're this late into the game, logistically, it is an absolute nightmare to try and schedule everything around everybody. Once again, I'm going to fall back to it, Matthew. Get everybody in a room in the month of July, August, September, whatever, and plan next year, and don't schedule on top of everybody. If you got to draw straws, bingo balls, I don't care.
So listen though, logistically, you're talking not what are there 4 opens in a championship?
Yeah.
So you're talking 10 opens. There's 5 coastal divisions with 3 in each division and a championship, so 16 coastas.
Yeah.
8 tour events, including the Cup, and 10 Elite Series events, include.
You're
There's
gonna
not
have
enough weeks
some overlap.
in a year.
But I think with the major events, there shouldn't be an overlap with anything else. It should be a standalone,
I agree.
all the focus on those guys, nobody else, nothing taking place, and go from there.
It just sucks it wasn't announced until, the dates were announced, though. So those guys knew that there was going to be something on top of it.
It says everybody in the same room might violate antitrust rules. That's kind of funny. All right, man, what else? Anything else? Good show tomorrow. We're going to have Miles Burkhoff on. And I actually got an email from a gentleman who was his very first guided customer.
I saw that.
It's pretty neat.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of interested on hearing about his rookie season on the FLW Tour. And the guy can catch him. He had a really good first stop on Sam Rayburn, and I know he's very, very savvy when it comes to the business side of this gig. And, hey, man, he's earned it. I mean, he's paying his dues.
Yep.
So we'll get to that tomorrow, same time. What else, Matthew?
That's all I got.
That's it? Nothing else?
Nothing else.
I'm trying to clean up the instant feedback here. That's a good point, Nate. Never thought about that when you look at that one. Jeff in Tennessee wants to know how much sponsorship dollars are in professional fishing. It's a good question. I think we're kind of seeing it right now with the money being spread over 3 different
meaning
major
a number
trails.
every cent that people sponsor anglers and tours. What do you think that adds up to?
I have no idea.
I couldn't even give you a ballpark, and you're a numbers guy.
I couldn't come up with it. What would be cool is if the guys would allow to be 100% truthful, and never publish their name.
They did that in Bassmaster.
I know. I'm talking about every single guy.
This is how much I'm getting from sponsors.
Yeah.
X number of dollars. Add it all up and say there's
X number of dollars. Now, they'd have to obviously separate it because some guys get cash and other guys get product.
Mm-hmm.
But you would separate those two to truly get an indication on how much sponsorship dollars are out there.
I mean, if you really wanted to get that number, how close do you think you could actually get to what it is? What would it take for you to come up with that number? I think I could get within
10 grand.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I think I could.
Between the 3 tours, all the sponsor dollars coming in?
One tour.
One tour. Of how much sponsor dollars are coming in?
I think I could go through the roster on the Elite Series and probably get within 10 grand of what the total sponsorship money is.
That they're paying to the organization or just to the anglers?
No, just to the anglers.
I would really love to see that. I'm challenging you.
Okay. I might do that. I
think we could do a sponsorship dollar show on the Elite Series.
Now,
we
we're
could
never
get
going to know
we could
because
get
the
a
guys aren't gonna
silhouetted
say.
angler on, Mark.
They're not going to say.
Behind a drop screen with a voice manipulator.
I really would like to do that. That would be cool to do at one Elite Series event. Just bring everybody into this.
All you have to do is ask them when
unlit
they come
room.
off. You'd have to.
You do it at the meeting, I guess.
No, all you have to do is when they come off stage, you hand them a piece of paper. You say, write down the cash number that your sponsors are giving
Now
you.
you have a record of it.
Do not put your name on it, anything. And there's a drop box, and you just slide it into the drop box. And then at the end, you have 75 pieces of paper with a number on it. You have no idea who wrote what, except for the ones that are like written in Japanese.
You think we can pull that off? I don't know if we can pull that off.
You have no idea who wrote what. You pull the calculator out, you add it up, and no one knows whose is whose, and you got a number.
Yeah. All right, we'll see.
Will there
see.
be any zeros on that? Do you think there is
No.
anybody fishing on the Elite Series who is getting zero sponsorship dollars?
No. I'll put money on that one. I don't know. Let me think about this. We're
There's
coming
got
up
to
with
be
some
a way
pretty
to
good
do it.
ideas.
You
Yeah,
just
we'll think
write
about
it down
that.
and put it like a ballot box almost.
Yeah, we'll think about that. All right. Want to thank Stephen Browning for taking time out to be on the show today. Great show. If you missed it, make sure you check out the replay on basshone.com, YouTube, or the audio replay on iTunes. Make sure you review us. Make sure you give us a rating on iTunes. And we will be back tomorrow, same time, 8:30 a.m. Central Time, right here. Everybody be safe. Stay warm. We're out of here.